Welcome to As You Wish Publishing Podcast, Episode 2. This is our continuation, essentially, of Episode 1, and where we talked about the kind of 4 pillars of publishing and the choices that you would have as someone who is wanting to get your book out there and wanting to know what your options are. We have traditional publishing, hybrid publishing, DIY or do it yourself, and then we have done for you professional publishing for self-published authors. So Todd and I have been having this conversation, and this is specifically geared to the blog post that he recently posted that I will link in the show notes. But Todd, let's talk about some of these things in a little bit more detail.
Awesome. So traditional publishing operates through a very competitive acquisitions process. Most manuscripts are submitted through literary agents, and acceptance rates are very, very low. Query letters, we're talking proposal packages, extended response times are standard. So for many authors, that submission process itself functions like a part-time job before a contract is ever offered. So not to be a Debbie Downer, but if someone is not published their first book yet and they have pipe dreams of becoming a traditionally published author, there's a lot of open water between getting started and doing that. And it has nothing to do with you being a great writer. If you happen to be a virtuoso writer and you just know how to do it, that could be a shorter climb. If you are not, and I would say either way, expect a long learning curve of understanding how the industry operates. You know, kind of like how if you were a DIYer trying to publish your book, expect to take about a year to figure out how to really do it correctly so that you can self-publish and it look professional, you know, in which case you might become a publisher once you iron it out that good, that well.
Well, I mean, back to traditional publishers and what it takes. Oftentimes, traditional publishers will not accept a manuscript that you send to them. They have to go through a literary agent.
Right.
So you're paying the literary agent to do that for you even before you know that your book would even be marketable to a traditional publisher. And then not only that, but what is it, like 1% to 2% are actually even accepted through the literary publisher. And if they don't see that your book is marketable, it doesn't even matter if it's well written. But if it's not even marketable, or they don't think it would be marketable, they're not going to do it, no matter how good of a writer you are. And that's the thing that a lot of people get confused. Right. Well, I guess I'm just not good enough. Nope, not true. If you look at some of the books out there that are traditionally published, I think you and I could both pick up a handful and go, yeah, your writing is way better than these books that I have in my hands. So don't let your confidence get wrapped up in that kind of game.
True. And it's just like, think of it in terms of like logging your 10,000 hours with a subject. You know, they say that that's how long it takes to become an expert in something. You are an expert in something. You have logged 10,000 hours in something, whether it was intentional or not, and you're pretty darn good at it, whatever it might be. It might be laundry. It might be changing oils in cars. It might be something at your job, you know. Writing is another one of those things. Learning how to write for a certain type of publishing is another one of those things. Learning how to adapt and learn the industry so that you can maybe get better chances of getting traditionally published. That's another one of those things, you know. And people like literary agents or whatever can help shorten that time frame for you. And you can, you know, focus on learning as much as you can to shorten your learning curve.
Right. And there's no guarantee that a literary agent will actually pick you up. So just want to kind of get some of those myth busting things right out of the way.
Yeah. So power with traditional publishing. So decision authority rests with the publishing house with traditional publishing. Acquisitions editors determine which projects move forward. And that's often based on like market positioning and projected sales visibility. Once there's a contract in place, the publisher typically retains final authority over the title, cover design, pricing, distribution channels, release timing. Most of the time, publishers consider the author's existing platform, like do you have a following,
Yep.
your media reach, or audience size as a part of that acquisition decision, unfortunately. So they're trying to figure out how much legwork they're going to have to do versus how much can you bring to the table in terms of exposure for your own book over and above whether the book is well written or not. All right, so that's power. Notice how it's automatically not self-publishing at this point, where you get to retain 100% of your rights and decision-making of everything. That's gone. All
Yep.
right. But the trade-off is bigger visibility.
Maybe
bigger visibility.
Yeah, there's no guarantee on
maybe
that either.
maybe status and things like that.
Right.
Even damn good writers who have written so many books and series of things spend years trying to get traditionally published, and they kind of work their way through the ranks, and they just commit to doing YouTube videos and all kinds of different offerings. It really can be and often is a career or a second career of self-promotion and some legit serious writing too. So there's power. So risk, traditional publishing, the publisher assumes the upfront financial risk, which is nice, right? Including advances, production costs, printing, distribution expenses. The author's risk is primarily time-based, as we've already talked about, including years spent. That is not exaggerated, by the way, including years spent querying, waiting, and potentially revising to meet market expectations.
Yeah. The other risk, of course, is that if the publishing company, let's say, gives an advance, they might be able to take back the advance. That might be in the contract. They might not revert the rights over to you if they decide that they want to stop marketing your book and you can't do a revised edition. And also, they're not required to market your book. They're not even required to publish your book if they feel like there's something else more marketable, even though they did choose your book to begin with. So now you're sitting in this limbo waiting for the traditional publisher to do something for you that you've been just holding on to this dream for years and nothing's happening because they suddenly say, it doesn't really fit with our marketing plan right now, but maybe in 5 years. And so they'll hold on to it forever.
Right.
So there's a lot to that. And I think it's important that people understand it's still not about how good of a writer you are. It's about the industry of books.
Well stated. Right. In addition, traditional contracts, publication remains subject to the publisher's internal approval process, along the same lines as what you're saying right now. In some cases, a project may be delayed indefinitely, like you were saying, or canceled prior to release based on the market conditions, list capacity, strategic shifts. They do the same thing with movies. They shore up things that they're wanting to do, and then the landscape changes, and what people are wanting changes in the market, and so different movies don't fly, and other ones are prioritized. It's all very much in strategic alignment with what the market is asking for. The same with movies and books. Rights reversion provisions may vary by contract, and an author might not regain control of the work unless specific revision terms are met. So a lot of the same things that Kyra was just saying. Control. Author control is highly limited once a contract is executed. Manuscripts might undergo like substantive editorial changes to align with commercial positioning. Expect that with traditional. Highly expect that. Marketing strategy, pricing decisions, publication schedules, format rights, generally determined by the publisher. Expect the most of all four of these publishing models. If you pursue traditional, even if you're damn good at writing, expect your book to change by the time it's actually published.
That's exactly right. Like at the end of a movie, and you say, well, that's not the ending of the book that I read, but the movie's ending is different. That is an industry thing that happened there.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because a lot of things are tested with audiences, and something that's written in a book might not translate very well to the screen. you know, and you can look that up. You can and just find all kinds of information about why that's how things from books don't always translate well, or they'll say it's written for the screen.
Yeah,
that's
right.
that's an example of something not translating well and it having to be adapted so that it makes a little bit more sense and it's more digestible by the time you're seeing it in front of you.
Yeah.
And everybody always says, how often have you heard this? The book was better.
Yeah, right.
Why was the book better? Well, because you get to paint your own picture based off of all the words the author is feeding to you. When it's translated to a screen, you're force fed what's being given to you. So there's a lot of compression that happens between the book and the screen. If something does translate well to the screen, fantastic. What a win. You know, if it doesn't, it's expected, because writing 100 or hundreds and sometimes upper hundreds, thousands of pages on something and trying to compress it into 2 hours is a tall task.
Yeah.
And some very creative people need to assimilate that in a way that isn't ultimately disappointing. And it, you know, they say things like follows the source material, you know, things like that, to make sure that it's honoring where it came from and it's not a major deviation or whatever. And there are a lot of liberties taken about how things are written for the screen and how much people like it or hate it, because they really, a lot of readers really defend their books.
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
You know, and
yeah, I mean, think about Pride and Prejudice and all the different variations of that. And,
right.
you know, people really can get up in arms about the different characters.
Yeah.
But to that point, it also works the same way, moving from the manuscript that you offer to the publisher that then tests it and says, oh, this works, this doesn't, even though your vision was so clearly in harmony with how you believe the story should have gone, or the nonfiction things should have gone, whatever type of book you got,
or how you felt reading the book.
Oh my gosh,
and how that feeling is not what you're getting when you watch it on screen,
right,
because it's compressed.
Or when you read the publisher's version of the book versus what you had initially had a vision of for the book that you've created.
Brilliantly stated. Let's move to upside. This is very short. Financial upside is shared through royalty agreements. The publisher recoups its investment before profit is realized. So if you're doing traditional publishing and you get an advance, the publisher needs to make that advance back before you get paid.
That's right.
And that may or may not even mean that you get paid.
So they may or may not get their requirement back.
Yeah. Suffice it to say, you absolutely want to read any kind of contract.
Yep. Especially if they can get it back from you, if for some reason they decide not to go forward with the book. But then you're like, but I just bought a jet ski.
Right.
It's like, crap.
I just bought matching jet skis and a house in Malibu, you know?
Right.
Yeah, well, we're keeping your book and you got to pay us the advance.
That's right.
You know? What? So authors typically receive a percentage of net sales rather than full margin participation. So there are most definitely trade-offs with traditional publishing. But the positive things about traditional publishing, the fantasy of it, those are things you've probably already gotten a taste of, which is why part of publishing is even appealing in the first place. But a lot of those things are dated and not accurate anymore. Traditional publishers don't even do a lot of that stuff that you remember them doing in the 80s and 90s, for a myriad of reasons, one of which is extreme market saturation with lots of different publishers, lots of different books. Technology has democratized publishing and a lot of other industries. It used to be, if you knew the right person who had the distribution, and those distribution channels were few and only a couple of companies had them, then you were put out to millions where no one else was really covering that space. But now you got social media, you got the internet. I mean, just the internet alone is a major game changer, much less all the different types of publishing that can be done. So what you think about traditional publishing now versus what was in the 1980s or 90s are two very different things.
Yeah.
And then finally, timeline, and this will conclude traditional publishing.
Okay.
From acquisition to release, traditional publishing timelines commonly range from 18 to 24 months, maybe longer.
Yep.
It depends, but you will find that time range if you do your own research. That includes agent representation if required, editorial development, expect that, production scheduling, seasonal catalog placement if your book is marketed for a specific season or time frame. We know that that's a thing, especially in this industry. Um, Coordinated distribution planning. In some cases, timelines might extend beyond 2 years, depending on list capacity and market positioning. But there is a lot more hands in the pot with traditional, a lot more moving parts, a lot more people involved. So expect the entire process to move much, much slower.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not if you're an instant gratification type of person, don't pursue traditional publishing. It
Right.
is a long game. It is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, you could pursue it, but at the same time, just know in the back of your mind, if this is a book that you're wanting to produce because it's a part of your expertise, it's something you know very well, you're wanting to use it as an asset, you're wanting to put it out to your community, to your clients, just keep that in the back of your mind. Sure, pitch it to a few literary agents and things like that. But ultimately, know in the back of your mind, because if this is in your heart to do it, you're going to do it regardless of what a traditional publisher says or doesn't say. That's the kind of mindset you have to go into this whole thing with, is saying, yeah, great if that happens. But if it doesn't, it's no skin off my nose because I have choices. And I think we'll go into some more of those choices in the next couple of episodes.
Yes. We've covered traditional as much as I would want to cover it right now, and we'll save the next one for the next episode.
Sounds good. All right, guys, we will see you again soon. Take care.